my name's Ren, and today I'm here to tell you a story. It's the story of an ugly duckling who figured out it was actually just an ugly swanling. I don't think that's the word, but we're going with it. In kindergarten, I had a best friend, and he was an effeminate kid. I was a tomboy, and we noticed that we were different from other children, but we didn't have words to describe it, so we made up our own. We would say that he was a girl boy and I was a boy girl. Creative as fuck, I know. We were like 4, okay? I'm genderfluid. That's one of many non-binary identities. That means I don't identify as either a man or a woman. And don't worry if you never heard of such a thing, because neither had I until 5 years ago, and I am one. As a kid, despite being, let's say, a behavioral tomboy, I had plenty of girly interests. I was into ballet, and princesses, and music, and theatre, and art, and the only reason I wanted to grow up was so I could wear pretty princess dresses. Mission fucking accomplished. This is the most makeup I've worn in years, and I hate every second of it, so let's get this part over with, shall we? I'm like God. Enjoy while it lasts. And I took that as, hey, that's what girls are supposed to be into. So yay, I'm normal. Turns out, not that easy. When puberty kicked in, I felt uncomfortable with the changes. And I was like, well, it's puberty. And supposedly everybody feels uncomfortable, so I guess this is normal, right? But it wasn't just the physical changes, it was also the social ones. My gal pals at the time put me through what I like to call girl boot camp. I learned about the intricacies of things like makeup, gossip, and how to be pretty to attract boys. And even though I didn't have any major problem with any of those things, I didn't really connect to them in the same way that they did. I didn't feel fulfilled in the way I felt I should be if I truly was a girl. If this was truly the social role I was meant to occupy. When I lost that group of girlfriends, I started hanging out with my guy friends more. I got into video games and found out I was very freaking bad at them. Believe me, I tried. And used my insider knowledge of how girls work to advise my male friends on romance. And my mindset shifted. One time, I was at a shopping mall with my mom, and she was getting something from a clothes store. Before, I would have been excited to be at a store that had so many pretty clothes and I could run around and look at everything and have a blast because I loved fashion. I even used to want to be a fashion designer for years. But that day, I was standing there annoyedly waiting for her to finish because I wanted to go to the video game store. And I kind of stopped like, wait, this isn't normal. I used to love this. What changed? I was exploring my masculinity, even without realizing it. That day freaked me out because it was the first time that I couldn't deny anymore that I had such a thing as a masculine side. Finally, when I figured out I was bi, besides everything ever suddenly making sense, I took that as an explanation for my masculine side. I figured that if I'm half a lesbian, that explains me being half butch, right? So, being in love with a girl, I embraced my masculinity. I started shopping in the men's section, cut off my hair. I went through so many haircuts. Have a collage of most of them. I was overcompensating for suppressing it for so long. But even in this new queer identity, including my new looks, with flannels and bow ties, something still felt off. I knew there was such a thing as trans men and trans women, but I knew I wasn't a guy, so I didn't even consider that this might be a trans issue. I felt like I was half a guy and half a girl. I was half of both. Or rather, I was two whole things, but at once. Two parts that make one bigger whole. That's also why I identified so deeply with the concepts of fusion in Steven Universe, and cried the first time I watched it, because that's kind of how my identity works. It's two parts, and sometimes it's one that's made of the two. Yeah. A least that was the best analogy I could come up with in the binary system that I was used to. But I was still struggling because that was not an option I'd ever heard of. Eventually I stumbled across the terms of bigender and genderfluid on Wikipedia, and it was like, it me! And that's it! That's how I found my gender identity. Good talk, guys. See you next time. Yeah, no, it's not. That's not where it stops. That's where it starts. Just because I had found a new word for my identity didn't mean the mindsets that I had grown up with weren't still deeply ingrained in me. I knew that previously, when it came to being attractive to guys, I was taught by girl boot camp to rely on my feminine charm. And all of media, including my beloved princess movies, had equally taught me that girls are into masculinity, whether that is a handsome prince or a butch lesbian. So my brain made itself a little equation. Femininity and masculinity attract each other. That is how relationships, gay or straight, are structured by any accounts that I have seen so far, so it must be true. And as I am into masculine men and feminine women, I, the androgynous non-binary, must be the kind to adapt to my partner. So, if I have a feminine partner, I will do the masculine part. And if I have a masculine partner, I will do the feminine part. And this is why, currently, as I am in love with a woman, I am expressing more masculinely. And that made sense to my tiny heteronorm brain that didn't know any better. So I disregarded the fact that my girlfriend had her fair share of traditionally masculine traits. She was the strong, independent woman type of person, which I was very much about. Just like the men that I felt attracted to had their fair share of feminine ones. I disregarded my girlfriend's dislike of me holding open doors for her, because I felt like it was something I had to do in the societal role that I occupied in relation to her. All the gentlemen in all the movies always hold open doors for their love interest, so it must be the right thing to do, regardless of situation, right? They're the nice guys, right? They're the shining example, right? I ignored that I felt like I couldn't show vulnerability, even though I was going through my depression at the time. Because I was supposed to be the one who's strong. I was the protector, the shoulder to lean on, not the one leaning on somebody else's. And I didn't even realize the heteronormativity, the traditional gender roles, and the toxic masculinity that comes with them that I was caught up in. Just because I wasn't tied down to one side of the problem anymore didn't mean I was out of it. Eventually, I broke up with my girlfriend and I moved to England for uni. There I joined the LGBT+ society and I met a lot of new people, but I didn't find a new love interest to adapt to. So I figured I might as well use the time and figure out what the hell I'm like by myself. I learned a lot since then. I met other non-binary and trans people, both in my course and in the society. I researched further into queer and gender studies, and even made a short about non-binary gender last year. Link in the description for that one. I thought about my own pronouns and name. I'm currently going by she, her, and he, him pronouns. User's choice, you're welcome. As I haven't found a third gender pronoun yet that I feel comfortable with. I shortened my name from Catherine to Ren. I haven't given up my old name like a lot of trans people do, so it's not a dead name. It's just my legal name, and I professionally go by Ren as to not confuse people unnecessarily. I worked on reconnecting with my femininity to get rid of the problems that I got from ignoring it for too long. Toxic masculinity. And to find balance again. I tried to come to terms with my queer identities, embracing my gay rather than trying to conform to heteronormative standards that I can't fit into anyway. And embracing the fact that non-binaries are part of the trans community and in turn that I am trans, even if I'm not trans-binary. All of that took a long time for me to come to terms with, and I'm still working on it, but I think I'm in a place right now where I'm pretty far ahead compared to where I started. And with that, I finished my social transition and I'm good now, I'm done, I'm finished. Sadly, we're still not there. After expressing myself freely for so long, I still didn't feel happy about the way I looked. The change in my style had greatly improved my comfort in my own skin, but it didn't do the whole job. So, for the first time ever, I asked myself what I actually wanted from my body. And at first the answer was simply not this. For the first time ever, I consciously felt dysphoric. I had gone for most of my teenage years ignoring my body. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror unless I was fully covered. I was uncomfortable in anything where I couldn't hide my body, even to the point of just dreading to shower. It made me feel uncomfortable, so I stayed away from it. I stayed hiding in my unhappy little hole because it was safe. I was ignoring my body because deep down, something had told me that if I stopped denying it, this exact thing would happen, that I would feel horrible, and it was right. I researched into transitioning and what options there were, and after a few months of research, I figured out that most of the problems I had with my body were fixable via hormones. So I went to my doctor and asked him for hormone therapy, and he referred me to the Gender Identity Clinic in London. Turns out the GIC has long-ass waiting lists because they are responsible for the whole country. So that was like over a year ago now, and I only just recently had my first appointment, where the main takeaway was I need to wait over another year. In the meantime, I did all the things as previously mentioned, working on my social transition and becoming more comfortable, at least in that part. I have to wait over another year before I can get treatment. And it'll be okay. I will survive. It's not like I'm not used to waiting at this point, so... And I'll get there eventually, and that's all that counts. Long story short, gender is complicated, dysphoria sucks, stuff takes time, and patience with yourself, others, and medical professionals is important. I hope this video could help some of you watching this. I should mention again, this is only my personal experience, and is not a universal experience. I hope this video will help some of you out there, either struggling with understanding, or with figuring yourself out, or with coming to terms with yourself, anything really. Hope it helps you. Hope it was informative and entertaining. Subscribe! For once, I didn't forget the outro, because I wrote it in my script, so...